Alright everybody, welcome back to Sketchcraft Live. I'm going to go ahead and just turn off that window capture feature right there. On the line with me right now is Mr. Ryan. You want to carry your last name? You don't care? You want to plug for where you're at? Ryan K? Ryan, you there? Hello? Ryan? Ryan, you there? It's all live, folks.
You're fine.
There you go.
Can you
There's
hear
going to
me?
be a little bit of a delay, so you might want to turn the audio down on the stream. So it's about a 20 to 30
Gotcha.
second delay. So the audio is in real time, the video is a little bit of a delay. So classic radio. All right, so
Gotcha.
we got Ryan here because Ryan has a question about. What's your question, Ryan?
Well, I'm trying to figure out why when I'm doing something in RGB is not converting over to CMYK the same way your videos show.
Okay, let's take a look. So you have sent me a file, and I will load this sucker up here. Let's just go to desktop here with. Oh, look, I got my pick. So this is your file you got set up. Now you've set your CMYK profile color settings to custom, right?
Yeah.
And you turn it to UCR 280, so you know you're good there. And this is the RGB version of your current colors. And if I hit Control Y, we can see the difference in color shift. So I'm previewing CMYK now, viewing in RGB. Now the colors you picked here are naturally dark, so I'm uncertain. What are you looking to do?
Pretty much get it. Make it a little brighter.
Okay, so that comes down to a good way to check what you have what I like to call a value problem. So there's two kinds of ways to look at colors, right? There's value and hue. Value being if an image was black and white, what it looks like with positive and
Right.
negative, right? And I'm explaining it for the average YouTube people. And then hue is color. So if we just set a layer on top right here, fill it with black, we could see that this is already pretty dark, and we're getting the value look. Um, Basically, these are your flats, right? Your base flats.
Yeah.
You would basically, in comic coloring, you would want your base flats to be closer to, if we just set this to screen, to something like this, right? This is what you would want
Right.
you want your base flats to look more like. Let me merge this to this. And then what you would do from here is make a duplicate of your whole area. You could fill it with black. I like to set it to sometimes I set it to like a purpley color or a red color. If I want a cool shade, it's 269 or a dark purple. We can move this all the way up
Okay.
here and set it to multiply 60%. Then in a mask, I'll go there and either I will paint in the highlight with the mask, or if it's, put it this way, if it's nighttime with its moody lighting, I'll paint in the light source, right?
Right.
If it's daytime, I'll paint in the shadow, which means
Okay.
you invert and you work in the shadows.
Right.
And you can, right here with value, you can come here and check your art and see how it's looking, from a value standpoint. So if I added an overlay layer on top to do extra glows, sorry, let me take a mask. I like to paint masks because they're non-destructive, which means I'm painting in
Yeah, I've
pot.
seen that.
Yeah. So if I go in here and add little rim lights, right, really quickly along the edge of Peter Parker here, when I look in value, I can already see, right, how that's going to work. So from there, we're talking
um,
about like a lighting, you know,
right.
situation.
Okay, that makes more sense than what I was trying.
Yeah, the CMYK is really just so you know that whatever you color is going to print accurately, that you're seeing what's going to print. So what you were seeing, that's how it's going to print. The problem is what you're seeing isn't what you want to print, right? Like you want to,
Right, exactly.
right. So what I go and do, and this comes over time, and I mean, if you like, you can do this too. Over time, I will build up files that have pre-made flat colors already set up. So I know when my flats get done, um, I know I already have the basic flat colors that I want to use, regardless of the coloring style, whether it's CG or if it's airbrushed. Case in point on this one, have you seen the final art for this?
Yeah.
Right, so we know the final art looks like this, but there, those are the flats, right? So that's me airbrushing right over those basic flats.
Oh, okay.
So all I do is I take things like the lines. You can take the lines and set them to like overlay a couple times and get some coloration out of it, depending on how cartoony you want it to look. I mean, sometimes you want it more serious.
Yeah.
So, uh, so I would say like from here, for me personally, it's easier to like figure out like that's why I like to do a color thumb first. Like a little thumbnail. Like if I took
Yeah, I've
this,
seen. Yeah, your uh colors roughies.
yeah, the roughies. I was like, I know, right? Roughies. So what I would do is I would take this, I would turn this down to 72 DPI, right? Just a tiny little thing. That's a little. Your image is 4:7. That's a little weird. 6:9 proportion. Let's take that down to 150. 6:9. 900 by 1000 pixels. The reason why I stick around 900 by 1000 pixels is if you wanted to make a desktop wallpaper for people,
Hmm.
there's enough resolution in there to do that. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
So you're
Yeah.
not having to upscale roughies and shit like that. Um,
Right.
and so then what I like to do is say, okay, what time of day would you say this is? Like a mid afternoon.
I'm just playing with it, so it really doesn't matter. I'm just trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
All right, so let's
Usually
say,
like dusk.
so if it's dusk, this is why I like the gradient maps, especially for like setting up like basic light schemes.
Hmm.
Um, I can come over here, reverse.
Yes, yeah, I was playing with how you're doing this, and that I get to a point. Your gradient maps, but I was like, oh
Yeah,
crud.
it's
That's
really,
cool.
yeah, it's what I try to tell like with the gradient map thing, is that it comes down to like global lighting, and you really do want to take your time when you're working
Right.
out the basic lighting, because if I know the key light source is behind him, he's actually going to be a little darker,
Yeah.
in the front, you know. Sometimes you have to fake it because it's, comic book land, and the heroes, but these guys can be a little darker, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then you can come in really quick and let's say we rim it. Now I'm doing this. Let me just go grab the sharp. I like the cell. You can son of a bitch. Sometimes the cell shade can be a little harsh when you first do it. So just in positive and negative values, I'm just working in some basic like lighting, and I'm thinking of the surfaces. Like here, he'd probably be a little darker right there. You know,
Now
uh,
this is all you just working in black and white with your gradient behind it, right?
the gradient's actually on top right
I'm sorry.
here.
Yeah, it's on
Yeah,
top.
yeah, and I use this this black layer set to saturation. So even if I accidentally pick a color, right, it's still
Hmm.
going to Photoshop's still going to see it in black and white. See, like if I go here and select this orange color, right, and on accident, and I paint it, it's still black and white. See? So yeah, and then what you can do is you can take a copy of your stuff, come right up here, set it to overlay, turn the opacity down, right, and you tint your colors to the lighting.
All right.
And then from there, you can add a shadow layer on top of that, right? And you can set that down to like maybe 40% and build on top of that the way you normally would.
Okay.
So this way, let's say you were doing this for a client, not Marvel, but let's just say a commission Marvel, whatever, right? And they're like, I fucking hate sunsets, I want to see that shit with, blue skies, and you're like, fuck, I'd have to go here and select a bunch of different colors, right? Well, not
Right.
true. You can go to your sunset layer, whatever, or your time of day layer. I created a bunch of different like maps and shit. So, um, not the best, but let's turn that one off. This here, and then I can set that to color, and then sometimes I fluctuate between normal or color plus a normal with it turned down depending on how I want it to work, right? So maybe not the best color scheme right there, but you catch my drift, right?
Yeah.
Like if it was just a straight. So like sometimes when you set to color, what the difference between a color mode and a normal mode is the color mode right here, the color sections will retain your value, your darks and your harsh darks and your harsh lights. The
Right.
problem is it can sometimes go too far. So I'll set to color, duplicate it, change it either to normal or darker color, depending on what I want, and then just turn the opacity down a little bit, so I can fill in the white areas with some of that color. Sometimes I only want the whites. So what happens is say you don't want this white, you want this blue. Like if I came in here and had pure white, but I wanted this to be something else, I would just take that and do. See, it's tinted now because I set it to normal. So sometimes they fluctuate between using a color and a normal at half opacity or just straight normal. In this case, the straight normal worked pretty good. If I turn this to color, see, oh, look at that, but the value is a little bit stronger, right?
Hmm.
But you see here, now we lost the yellow in the white. I'll, I'll, right, so there it's tinted. When we set to color, you lose that. But if you make a duplicate, go back to, darken or normal and just set the opacity. Here you get it back. So you still retain that cool the value is already worked out, you know?
Right.
So it's not like I'm trying to go and use the gradient maps to color every little piece. I'm using it to
No,
control
just
global
what you
lighting.
to your advantage.
Yeah, and to your advantage. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, because what happened, Ryan, is I spent years doing this fucking maneuver where you have a million reference covers, like you got your favorite Spider-Man cover open, right? And then you're
Hmm.
selecting all these colors, right? Out here and here, and you're trying to paint every little one of these in, you know? And that's like a 10-year problem. And when you try to do that for publishers, I found they always want changes.
Yeah.
They want changes, man. Like, I can't.
No,
So,
yeah, your way definitely is time saving.
yeah, and so, but what I've done too is, like I said, this is what I do to control the lighting. I get it working. Once it's working, then I go and do the key shadows on top.
Hmm.
That's where your flats help. Like if you have all these characters separated, because you can just fill in the characters with shade, not the background,
Right.
right? Just the characters, and then just instead of starting with it all filled in. Oh, sorry, so I'm not selecting the mask. Instead of filling out, I actually just then inverse and paint in the shadows on top. Where I want those to be
Right.
according to the light source. And it's sometimes it's easier to start with the hard brush, and then you can just take your painter brush and in the mask get that step out, or your airbrush if you want it smooth, right? I found that it's sometimes just easier to paint in like a cell shade, but then to use your airbrush to either mask out or to go around the edge to create that blend, right? Sometime, and if you needed a core shadow, you just duplicate, fill it back with black, and then come over there and add, one more step to do those core little areas. And you just blend between the two.
Yeah, nice.
So, and then the difference here with the CMYK is if I see with the CMYK, it's going to look a little hazier. So you can adjust your settings based on that. Like maybe this is too bright, or not bright enough.
So my start out error in this was picking darker, muddier colors to begin
Yeah,
with.
you almost like I think when you saw the Spider-Man, you saw how dark he was. You know, was that it? Because like when you
Well,
look at that,
I kind of just learned doing everything in reverse. I pick a darker color and I kind of add in like paint the light into it. So
which
what it starts out is the base shadow.
which is perfect, but you want your flats to be fairly bright. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just bright, simple, like like this. You know. Um, and then all you do is you place your shadow over that. You know. And then paint in.
Right.
You can just paint out that mask, and you'll get your highlights. You know.
Yeah.
So did that help?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Do you have any other questions? I just wanted to run that by. I have.
No, I'm good.
I'm all open. Well, if you ever have any other questions, man, feel free to let me know. Like, I just want to be able to put this out there for everyone to learn. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
because I wasted years, dude. Like, I trying to just.
Well, I'd look at things. I'm like, how the heck do I do this? And Brandon, of course. Hey, check out Rob's page. And I started to literally all night tonight. I'm like, all right, this is Rob. Rob did this. Okay, how did you do that? Okay, gradient maps. Okay, okay. That's better than what I was trying to do. All right, let's watch this video. Let's watch this video. So now it's just I got to retain all that information and try and put it onto this piece.
Yeah, it's definitely, not. It's not like you can just up and do it. No, I will say this. The cool part is once you figure out your gradient maps, you can save these into like you make a folder and call that sunset, right?
Yeah.
Now the cool part about that is if I'm gonna move this over to a second screen and come back to your high res version, right? Right here. I can take that sunset. Gradient maps are resolution independent. They don't matter.
Just plow it right over.
Yeah, just plow right over, And then again, just you could take, you just start with your basic lighting underneath, and you're good to go. Like, because we did that. Remember, we did the shit underneath,
Yeah.
you know? Because so you could have the basic setup and you just sort of recreate the lighting, but the sunset's there.
Right.
Those never go away. So I've started to build since I started using gradient maps this year, like around spring. And since then, I have a whole map that's like anytime I make something, it's every Skylanders cover is its own folder, and I'm like, okay, now I know rocks, red. Sometimes I want capes to be a red to purple. I want greens to be green to yellow, or I want mint to, something else. And
Right.
I save those in, but then I paint on top of the gradient maps to get the extra core shadows and stuff. So,
Nice.
and so if you look, that's what I'm doing. I learned to do it really with the Copics, in the digital backgrounds.
Mhm.
So that's all I'm doing. Because I had to add the shadows to I treated the Copics as the base flat, super bright. Add a shadow to it, you know what I mean, and then paint it out.
Yeah.
So the
Now,
Copics,
when you're painting on top of your gradients for your shadows, and then the highlights, I know you paint the white, and it brings out more. So if you're doing the more shadows and stuff, all you're doing is you're painting under it.
initially, yeah. So if I wanted to get like basic whites, here's your stuff, right? Sharp. Oh, shucks, I'm on the wrong one. All right. So you're probably wondering at what point do you stop painting under the gradient map, right? Like,
Right.
so you're like, oh, look, I got white here, I got a skin tone. But let's say you wanted to actually, you know, go further. What I do with this is I get it to the point where the basic lighting is set up, right? And I'm happy with it. And then when I paint on top, I'll actually go in and actually, here you could actually paint color on top. So if I wanted to have, let's say the sun, I'll come here and add yellow, you know, and I'll paint that on top of the image in color. So the gradient maps are like a base, to
Your
cover,
base
to cover,
light and dark scheme.
yeah, the base, and then I want to paint all the additional colors and stuff on top of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, you figure out what works easiest for you. What gets you to the simplest thing.
Right.
And I feel like to control the temperature, this is the fastest way. Like just I look how long that would take you if you added a gradient and all this other stuff. You might be
Oh
sitting
yeah.
there trying to draw shit forever, like getting the ramp just right or airbrushing in all these things. So
Oh yeah. Even just the little that you just did, I'm like, okay, yeah, that would probably take me, at least a good 20 minutes instead of 30 seconds.
yeah, and those things pile up.
Yeah.
Like I did the
Yeah.
bomb cat, man. Like this sucker here, that's the hard way, man. And I tried to simplify it, so it's just the flats, but I added the shadow and airbrush on top. Knowing what I know now, um, I could have done all this airbrushing in black and white. You know how much easier that is. You know what I mean? Because you're
Yeah,
just
exactly.
so, and then all these things on top. See these like these little rim lights around her legs and stuff, like all
Hmm.
here. That I would have added on top of the gradient maps. You know what I
Right.
mean?
That's pretty much that's its own layer going over what you did.
Exactly, and that's where you get to build that extra color detail on top, and that just all the rendering is done so fast, like it's way faster, man. Like,
Nice.
so, um,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to practice that gradient part.
but at the very least, your base question was answered. And
Absolutely.
again, if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. That's it, Brian. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can go, easiest way is to ryanmkincaid.com, and it'll actually take you to the Facebook, the Instagram, the DeviantArt site, Twitter, all of it.
Perfect. Kincaid. That's Ryan, Kincaid. Kincaid. You're a pretty good artist, man, dude. You're gonna get there. You know what I mean? Coloring's a whole
Thanks
nother
a lot,
thing.
bud.
Don't stress. Talk to you next time, all right?
All right, bud. Thanks a lot.
Bye.